that constantly to shut down anybody that might have words that you disagree with so far on a political basis. That's really annoying, and that ultimately kind of undermines the constitutional underpinnings of democracy and everything like that. Okay? Rather annoying. Questions and comments with respect to freedom of assembly. So let's hope, however the jury comes back in the Siobhan case in Minneapolis, Minnesota, that everything's calm, relatively. I would be actually surprised, though, frankly, if there was a jury verdict of not guilty. I think that would be kind of synonymous with maybe some of the level of protests that occurred last year, or even like before you guys were born, after the Rodney case, where the police officers were found not guilty in the initial stage, and there was a lot of people who were very upset, and there was some violent protests as well. Question, comment? Perhaps. There are a lot of folks, law enforcement is very, very aware, and they're hoping for the best. Okay? Although, here's an interesting question, constitutionally. Here we go. If Officer Siobhan is found not guilty, can they retry him? Yes. No. Because of what? Yes. Double jeopardy. Double jeopardy. Unless the officers in the Rodney King case were retried, but not under state law. They were charged under federal law, beating up Rodney King, because he's black, which is a violation of federal law, civil rights law. Okay, now we get into something a little bit different. This is a little bit of a different package here. It's interesting, it's controversial, and yeah. Is that right? Yeah. So here we go. The right to assemble, obviously for peaceful protests and things like that, is also interpreted by the Supreme Court as a right to associate. In fact, you want to write it down as the right to association. And this is really interesting, okay? Don't think of necessarily going out in public with a protest march or anything like that as far as this, because most of these right to association cases are very, I mean, they particularly rise on like private property with small groups of people, sometimes a little bit bigger, and it's kind of like, who are they going to hang with? Sometimes I would give students a hard time and say, I'm just going to find out who among you is like the noblest, kindest, most perfect student out there. Do you want to volunteer? As in, would you ever discriminate? Olivia, do you want to volunteer? Olivia's like, I don't want to volunteer for this. You want to volunteer? All right, Connor, you're going to be the volunteer. All right, you are non-discriminatory. You're not discriminatory? You don't discriminate, do you? Okay. Now, if I were to, here's the thing. Write this down, everyone. You have a right to discriminate in many instances. Oh, wow. I didn't just say you choose to discriminate. I say you have a right to discriminate in many circumstances. Settle down. Be quiet. Okay. All right. So we're going to put some parameters around this. Okay. So are you discriminatory? Connor's like, no, I'm not discriminatory. What'd you have for breakfast this morning? Why not? Was there breakfast? Was there food in the house?
Yesterday I had breakfast 3 times.
Right. Sounds like a hobbit. I've got second breakfast, yeah. So, what'd you have for lunch? Really? Why didn't you have a jelly sandwich? Why didn't you have... Oh, so you discriminated. Oh. So are you guys okay with people discriminating with respect to food? Yeah. Okay, all right. It's like, oh, that was too easy, all right? Connor, you don't discriminate with respect to people, do you? No, he doesn't. All right, so this is too easy. You ready? Here we go. Connor, forget it. We're moving past the peanut butter sandwich. All right, here we go. Connor. We're moving on. We're moving on.
I suppose you like pineapple.
Okay. All right. You do not have a constitutional right to interfere with my lesson. All right, Connor, back to you. You do not discriminate against people. He says he doesn't discriminate against people, right? So you had lunch today, yes? Did you have lunch with people? Yeah. Who? Really? Nobody else? Really? You discriminated in favor of Gabe and Ivan, and other people in here you discriminated against?
Well, I wouldn't use my lunch at that time, but yeah.
But yeah. Is that okay? Now, without being rude or anything and so forth, it's not like those people are offensive and so forth. You just chose not to be with them. Is that okay? Anybody having a problem with Gabe choosing to be with some people over choosing to be not with other people?
Yeah.
Does he have a constitutional right to do that? Yeah. Yes, go ahead, write that down. You have a constitutional right to hang out with who you want to as far as your lunches. And your friends? Do you have a constitutional right to pick who your friends are? Uh-huh. Could you, form up a club of friends? Now here's the question. Could the government look at your association of people forming together and say, that is not okay. We want you to allow other people in. That's the question. When can the government, if at all, say you have to let other people in? Now, notice this. The question is with respect to private association. If it's a public institution like a charter school, can a charter school say we are not going to let certain people that would otherwise qualify for public education, which is pretty much everybody, not be allowed to come into a charter school? No, you can't do that. You can't do that. So if it's public, you can't do that. Now, here's another thing. Write this down as well. Some businesses, we're going to see, are open to the public. And particularly in the 1960s, the United States government came around and ultimately said, okay, you're a business, you're a hotel, you're a restaurant, you're open to the public. You can't discriminate against African Americans. You can't do that anymore. So that's an interesting thing. So you're private, but you're operating in a public sphere, so you could potentially have some government requirements on you there. All right? But what if it's just strictly private, you hanging out with your friends and doing your thing and so forth? How much can the government step in and say, you need to open up. You need to not have, because here's a question for you. Connor's going to give you the right answer. Do you discriminate against people because of their race, religion, color of skin, gender, etc.? Oh, there we go. It's I don't know about tomorrow. Okay. So anyway, so here's the deal. Hey, be nice. Okay, MK, do you want a question or comment before we get into the New Jersey Boy Scouts case? Okay? Health issues, yeah.
So is that allowed?
Yeah. So in fact, those exist before. So I mean, if you're a business and so forth, and it says no shoes, no shirt, no whatever, I mean, those are sanitary type of regulations. So it probably would fit under that auspices. But you're not going to have one that says, no Jews, no Protestants, no Catholics, no Muslims, no whatever. I mean, we're pretty much it's like. Yeah, you can't have those ones in. All right, so here we go. Let's get the facts here. We'll get the decision here before we get out of here. New Jersey Boy Scouts. This would have been about, I want to say 10 or 15 years ago. There has been, for those of you guys who are familiar with the Boy Scouts and the Scouts organization and so forth, you're probably able to fill in a lot of the well, what's happened since? New Jersey, a state, didn't like discrimination, and they brought a lawsuit against the Boy Scouts in New Jersey. The Boy Scouts in New Jersey basically it's a private association. It consists of scoutmasters and then lots of boys. Okay? I mean, hello. And some of the rules, and there's various different things that are tied in and so forth. On its face, there is an advocacy for promoting the religious views of individuals and so forth. And commensurate with that, one of the views that they had was that they did not want to have openly homosexual scoutmasters. Okay? As an example, okay? The concern about openly homosexual scoutmasters, because they were if you were part of that association, that organization, so forth, you had kids participating and so forth. Generally, the view was, as the association would say, the Boy Scouts would say, we view non-homosexual relationships in a more positive way, and therefore we don't want to have scoutmasters openly going against that particular message. Does that make sense? It's kind of like, to draw it to a full extreme, if you can a government get into the rules of a church and say, oh, I'm sorry, you actually have to change your religious views with respect to how you view sexual relations and all kinds of various different things. How private can private be? Well, I tell you what, we haven't had a lot of time for discussion on this one, but how many of you guys would rule in favor of New Jersey, saying New Jersey didn't want to have discrimination against homosexuals and so forth, they can tell the Boy Scouts what to do? How many of you guys would be in favor of the Boy Scouts saying, whatever, it's a private association, they can tell themselves what to do, and they can change their views if they want to? Write it down. I know we cut off a lot of the debate on this one. Sorry. New Jersey Boy Scouts won. They got to set the rules. Curious question. Today, if you join the Boy Scouts organization in New Jersey, could you be an openly homosexual scoutmaster? Who changed that rule? They did. Okay? They did. Yeah. As a private association. So we'll pick up on that because there's some more ramifications on the right to association. Yeah, we'll get into boy-girl eating, lunchtime eating clubs. Okay, all right. Okay. Okay. Wipe her down. After you're finished wiping it down, you may go. Have a good one.